What if I told you that the most important vehicle in American history isn't the one you think it is? While everyone talks about the Model T car, there's a forgotten version that secretly shaped the modern world. Most people know Henry Ford's Model T as the car that put America on wheels. But here's what they don't teach you in history class. There was also a pickup truck version that did something far more incredible. This humble workhorse didn't just transport goods. It carried America through its darkest moments and quietly built the foundation for everything we see today. From secret military operations to saving families during the Great Depression, this forgotten truck has a story that will completely change how you see American history. Now, before we dive into this incredible story, I need to tell you something. Only about 0.5% of people watching this video are actually subscribed to the channel. That tiny number makes it really hard for me to keep making videos like this one and get monetized. So if you're enjoying what you're learning, hitting that subscribe button would mean the world to me. Picture this. It's 1925, and you're walking through a small American town. Horse-drawn carts are still common, but there's this strange-looking vehicle puttering down Main Street. It's got 4 wheels, a simple bed in the back, and it sounds like a sewing machine having a nervous breakdown. Most people barely give it a second glance. They have no idea they're looking at the vehicle that will secretly change everything. The Ford Model T pickup truck, or as Ford called it, the runabout with pickup body, was never supposed to be a hero. Henry Ford didn't wake up one morning thinking he'd create a machine that would reshape military strategy, save American families, and build the modern economy. He just wanted to make a simple, affordable truck that farmers could use to haul stuff around. But here's the thing about history. Sometimes the most ordinary objects end up doing the most extraordinary things. The Model T pickup looked almost comically simple compared to today's trucks. No power steering, no air conditioning, definitely no heated seats. Just a 20-horsepower engine, a manual transmission, and a wooden bed that could carry about 0.5 ton if you were feeling optimistic. The whole thing weighed less than 1,500 pounds and topped out at around 45 miles per hour if you were going downhill with a tailwind. Most history books ignore this truck completely. They focus on the Model T car, which sold over 15 million units. But the pickup version? Ford made far fewer of them, and they seemed destined for obscurity. Farmers bought them, small businesses used them for deliveries, and that was supposed to be the end of the story. Except it wasn't. See, what made this truck special wasn't its power or its looks. It was something much more important, its adaptability. The Model T pickup was like a blank canvas that people could modify for whatever they needed. And when America faced its biggest challenges, this humble truck stepped up in ways nobody saw coming. Let me take you back to World War I. It's 1917, and America has just entered the war. The military is scrambling to figure out how to move supplies, transport troops, and keep the war machine running. Traditional horse-drawn vehicles are too slow, and purpose-built military vehicles are expensive and scarce. That's when someone had a brilliant idea. What if we took these cheap, reliable Model T pickups and turned them into war machines? Now, Ford never marketed the Model T pickup as a military vehicle. But the US military saw something that civilian buyers missed. These trucks were incredibly easy to fix. Any mechanic could work on them with basic tools. They were cheap to produce, which meant you could have lots of them. And most importantly, they were tough as nails. The military started buying Model T pickups in bulk and modifying them for combat roles. They welded steel plates to create makeshift armored vehicles. They mounted machine guns in the beds. They used them to transport ammunition, medical supplies, and communications equipment across battlefields where horses couldn't go and larger vehicles couldn't fit. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Model T pickup didn't just serve in World War I. It revolutionized military logistics forever. Before these trucks, armies moved supplies the same way they had for thousands of years, slowly, with predictable routes and massive vulnerability to attack. The Model T pickup changed all that. Suddenly, you could move supplies quickly along unexpected routes. You could set up mobile command posts that enemy forces couldn't predict. You could evacuate wounded soldiers from places that were impossible to reach before. A U.S. Army report from 1918 noted that Model T pickups were completing supply runs in one-third the time of horse-drawn equivalents, while carrying twice the load. More importantly, they were surviving attacks that would have wiped out traditional supply convoys. The truck's impact went beyond just moving stuff around. It changed how military strategists thought about warfare itself. For the first time in history, you had a vehicle that was cheap enough to mass produce, reliable enough to depend on, and versatile enough to adapt to any situation. Other countries took notice. France started buying Model T pickups from Ford. Britain modified them for desert warfare in the Middle East. Even Russia, despite their complicated relationship with capitalism, recognized that these American trucks were game changers. But the military applications were just the beginning. The real story of how this truck changed history was still to come. Fast forward to 1929. The stock market has just crashed, and America is sliding into the worst economic disaster in its history. Banks are failing, businesses are closing, and millions of families are struggling to survive. In the midst of all this chaos, something remarkable happened. The Model T pickup became a lifeline. By 1930, used Model T pickups were selling for as little as $25. That's about $400 in today's money. For families who had lost everything, these trucks represented something precious: hope. Here's how it worked. A family would pool together whatever money they had left and buy a beat-up Model T pickup. Then they'd load everything they owned into that little wooden bed and drive west, looking for work in California's farms or construction projects. The truck became their transportation, their moving van, and often their temporary home, all rolled into one. But the Model T pickup did something even more important during the Depression. It kept small businesses alive. Think about it. If you were a farmer trying to get your crops to market, or a craftsman trying to deliver your goods to customers, you needed reliable, affordable transportation. The Model T pickup was often the only option that made financial sense. There was even a phenomenon called the Hoover wagon. That's what people called cars that had been converted to be pulled by horses because their owners couldn't afford gasoline. But Model T pickups were so fuel-efficient and easy to maintain that most owners could keep them running even when money was impossibly tight. The truck got about 13 to 21 miles per gallon, which was incredible for the 1930s. More importantly, you could fix almost anything that went wrong with basic tools and parts that cost next to nothing. When you're choosing between feeding your family and fixing your vehicle, that kind of reliability isn't just convenient. It's the difference between survival and disaster. Small towns across America stayed connected because of these trucks. Mail got delivered, supplies reached remote areas, and commerce continued even when the formal economy was falling apart. But perhaps most importantly, the Model T pickup gave people something to do. Thousands of Americans started small trucking businesses with nothing more than a used pickup and a willingness to work. They hauled goods between towns, helped families move, transported construction materials for government work programs. These weren't glamorous jobs, but they kept people working and communities functioning when everything else was breaking down. Economic historians estimate that the Model T pickup was directly responsible for maintaining commerce in over 60% of rural American communities during the worst years of the Depression. Without these trucks, entire regions of the country might have been cut off from the broader economy completely. Now here's where the story gets really wild. World War II ends, America is booming again, and everyone's talking about the future. New cars, new technology, new possibilities everywhere. But while everyone was focused on the flashy stuff, the humble Model T pickup was quietly building the foundation for everything that came next. See, all those businesses that survived the Depression using Model T pickups? They didn't just survive, they grew. And as they grew, they needed better trucks. This created demand for the next generation of pickup trucks, which led to the Ford F-Series, the Chevrolet C/K Series, and every other pickup truck line we know today. But the influence went deeper than just truck design. The Model T pickup had proven something crucial: that small, independent businesses could compete with big corporations if they had the right tools. This concept became the backbone of America's post-war economic boom. Think about the suburbs that exploded across America in the 1950s. How do you think all those houses got built? Thousands of small construction companies, many of which got their start during the Depression with nothing more than a Model T pickup and some hand tools. The interstate highway system that transformed America? It was designed partly based on lessons learned from Model T pickup routes during the 1930s. Military planners remembered how effectively these trucks had moved supplies during the war, and they wanted a road system that could support that kind of mobility on a national scale. Even the rise of franchising, McDonald's, Holiday Inn, all those businesses that created modern American commerce, depended on the distribution networks that the Model T pickup had pioneered decades earlier. But the international impact might be even more significant. After World War II, America started exporting its ideas about transportation and commerce to the rest of the world. The concept of the pickup truck, a simple, versatile, affordable vehicle that small businesses could use to compete with larger companies, spread globally. In Australia, it influenced the development of the Uda. In South America, it inspired decades of small truck manufacturing. In Africa and Asia, American military surplus Model T pickups became the foundation for entire transportation economies that still exist today. There are parts of the world where the great-great-grandchildren of Model T pickups are still hauling goods, still supporting families, still keeping communities connected. So here we are, almost a century later, and the influence of this forgotten truck is everywhere if you know how to look for it. Every time you see a small business owner loading equipment into a pickup truck, you're seeing the legacy of the Model T pickup. Every time a family uses a truck to move to a new city for better opportunities, they're following paths that were first carved by those Depression-era migrants. The gig economy that defines so much of modern work, it's built on the same principle that the Model T pickup pioneered, giving individuals the tools they need to compete independently in the marketplace. Even the way we think about vehicle design today reflects lessons learned from the Model T pickup. The emphasis on reliability over luxury, the importance of easy maintenance, the value of adaptability. These concepts that seem obvious now were revolutionary when Henry Ford first implemented them. But here's what really gets me. We're living through another period of economic uncertainty, and once again, people are turning to pickup trucks to create opportunities for themselves. Food trucks, delivery services, mobile repair businesses. The spirit of those Depression-era entrepreneurs lives on. The Model T pickup taught us that the most powerful innovations aren't always the flashiest ones. Sometimes, the thing that changes the world is just a simple tool that gives ordinary people the ability to do extraordinary things. And that lesson is more relevant today than ever. In a world of complex technology and global corporations, there's still something to be said for the simple, reliable, adaptable approach that made the Model T pickup so special. The story of the Model T pickup isn't just history, it's a blueprint. It shows us that world-changing innovations often come from unexpected places and take forms we don't immediately recognize as revolutionary. Right now, there are probably dozens of Model T pickups around us, simple tools and technologies that seem ordinary but are quietly building the foundation for tomorrow's world. The question is, are we paying attention? The farmers and small business owners who first bought Model T pickups didn't think they were making history. They just needed a reliable way to get work done. But their collective choice to embrace this simple, practical technology ended up reshaping civilization. Maybe the lesson here is that we should pay more attention to the humble, practical innovations that make ordinary people's lives better, rather than just focusing on the flashy, high-tech solutions that grab headlines. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that the tools that truly change the world are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to recognize their potential. The Model T pickup spent decades being overlooked by historians, overshadowed by its more famous car sibling, dismissed as just another farm vehicle. But when we finally look closely at its story, we see that it was quietly one of the most influential machines in human history. So the next time you see an ordinary pickup truck on the road, remember, you're looking at the descendant of a vehicle that helped win wars, survived the Great Depression, built modern America, and changed the world forever. And who knows? Maybe that ordinary truck you're watching is busy making history right now, one load at a time. Hit subscribe to see what other hidden stories are waiting to be discovered.